talk a little bit about what does intention mean? How would you explain it to someone who's completely new to yoga? Um, so Jodi, let's start with you.
So, what I think is interesting, and a lot of people, there's a lot of different terms that you hear in yoga class. So you mentioned the word intention, you mentioned mindfulness. I always say a lot when I teach, the word intention means nothing more than focus. Like it's a place for you to put your mind, so your mind isn't wandering off onto all the things that you have to do when you leave class or all the things that happen that week. It's just, an intention is a place for you to come back to and go, okay, strength, or just be here, just be like something, we say things to ourselves all the time in our mind, like the self-talk. So it's a way to calm the self-talk and put your mind on a focus point, whatever that focus point is. And
Yes.
again, so when you hear an instructor say something like set your intention, basically all they're saying to you is find a thought that's productive that you can pull yourself back to when your mind starts to go off into a million different places. So again, it might be something as simple as just saying inhale, exhale, inhale, like to yourself. Because otherwise, we all know how this is, you've been in yoga class and your mind has been completely somewhere else. And that really defeats the purpose of being in that space. Of course, being there physically and moving and breathing is good for you no matter what, but a huge part of yoga is teaching you how to be present, because being in the moment, that mindfulness, that intention. Mindfulness is basically a fancy way of saying be physically, mentally, and emotionally where you are in that moment, not physically in one space and mentally and emotionally somewhere else. So being mindful, being aware of where you are, and then intention is that focus to bring you back to the moment when you start to wander off into all kinds of different places. So
Very
that
well.
would be my interpretation.
Kelsey, what's yours?
Yeah, just I mean, Jodi just really nailed that. Extremely well said.
Okay, then
The only
how would you tell someone what's a good way to start setting an intention? How would you tell someone to who's
so
never gone to
how,
class before?
how I usually try to explain it to my students and peers, like Jodi said, just go into a place. I always just say, close your eyes, breathe, think about what brought you here today, and try to bring some aspect of something into your practice. And I'm like, that can be a verb, it can be an action, it can be a noun. I'm like, you can practice for your dog or your mom or anyone right now. You can practice strength, power, serenity, stillness. You can practice like literally anything, just trying to bring in some sort of feeling to your practice. And I get kind of spiritual, hippy dippy with it. I'm like, close your eyes, whatever you want to bring into. Say if I want to bring in stillness, like I just want to be still, I want to move slow, I'm like, bring that stillness into your aura, breathe that in, feel what that feels like, inhale and exhale that in, and like keep that with you the whole time. So that's how I like to interpret it, just putting a real feeling to it instead of just being like, okay, I'm going to get strong tonight. Because it's more than that. It's like, what kind of strength do you want to bring into it, and it's also with intention.
Oh, Kelsey just dropped out. I'm sure she'll come back. Jodi, you still there?
Sorry.
Yep, I'm here. There she is.
Woo, she's back.
I'm big now. So with mindfulness is, now I lost my train of thought.
So how would you describe to someone, what does awareness mean? When you say, bring awareness into your practice or have awareness tonight, what do you mean when you say that to your students?
I mean, that just means being aware, just being in the present moment, really just being aware of yourself mentally, physically, and where you're at right now, just as a whole. So you need to be mindful of your body. I always like to mention, when you close your eyes, whatever position we're in to start off, that's usually something very just opening up the spine and breathing. Do a body scan. You have to be mindful and be aware of where your body is at today. as we all know, traveling through life and every day to day, your body's going to feel differently every single day. So you might be in a space where you're saying, my back is really hurting me today, or my right hip's really hurting me today, my neck hurts. You need to be mindful and aware that there's an issue there, and you don't want to make it worse. So there's going to be aspects of your body, every single practice is always going to be different, that you're going to want to pull away from and not be as intense with. And there's going to be other days that you're like, man, I just want to open up my hips, and you're going to put extra intention into opening up your hips.
But here, listen, here's what I think is interesting when you're saying that. So, and I think it's good to bring this up, because it's like you have to be so present in your body to even know that, right? Yeah. So, and that goes back to your mind and mentally, physically, like being so in what you're doing and not off somewhere else. Because you're right, Kelsey, it's like if you aren't there, you're going to hurt yourself potentially. So you have to mentally, emotionally, physically be right there. So if it's almost as intense as being like, okay, inhale, arms up, exhale, like you have to be right there to even know what pain is in your body, to know where to put your intention.
Yes, and it's just every moment to moment. So I always, when I'm talking to friends and family who've never done yoga before, and say, even if they have, like a couple people have been like, I go there and it's so hard, I have no idea what's going on, and they move too fast. So that's why we talked about before, go to an intro class and just take it one step at a time, take it just
one step at a time.
And that's so true. Take it one step at a time. Mm-hmm. I think when I have people that come to my yoga class, I try to keep like a minimal with the terminology, because I have to remember that a lot of people, they know what the English dictionary term for mindfulness, awareness, and intention is. And it's something completely different and on a different level with yoga. So I try to say, what do you want to achieve? What is something that you want to happen? And I open it up in that sense to them. And then at the beginning of class and at the end of class, I bring it back. Okay, remember what we were thinking about, or that one thing you wanted to achieve. That's your intention. That's what your intention would be. And so at the beginning of class, I also do like the body scan, like Kelsey said. What hurts? What feels good? So I make them become aware of what in your body is feeling like awesome, like, oh, my knee feels great, it usually hurts, I feel awesome today. Okay, notice what doesn't feel good, because you have to notice what doesn't feel good so you can keep those parts safe. So when I do that, then at the end of the class, I bring it back. I said, so if you remember to keep that, hip or that knee or that ankle safe during class because it wasn't feeling so well, you practice mindfulness tonight in your practice and with your body. And then awareness is one thing that I bring up a lot in my classes is, where are you on your mat? So our mats are square and they're long, but notice when you do your sun salutations, so you're in this little like box. I'll use my book. So like you're in this little box, like if this is your mat, but do you travel from here to here to here to here? So I noticed that actually one of my teachers noticed that I traveled a lot in my mat. Even though I was on my mat, I would move side to side, and I wasn't aware that I was doing it. So I actually bought a skinnier mat, a smaller mat, so that I can't travel from side to side. So I'm really aware of how I'm moving my body, because I'm not just doing this pose to get to the front to the back. And while I'm going to the front to the back, I'm going a little to the left, a little to the right, a little to the center, and I'm not being mindful or aware of where my body is going. So I started to practice on smaller, skinnier mats, and I realized that now I stay in my little space. And so by doing that, I'm keeping my alignment good, and I'm keeping my posture safe for me. I'm not like, oh, I got to the front of my mat, I'm good. But I may have not gotten there safely. So I always like to point out to students, be aware of how you're traveling on your mat. Be aware of where you're going and how you're getting to the front and how you're getting to the back. And are you moving in a safe manner? And so when I talk about intention, beginning of class, I don't say it's your intention. Same thing with mindfulness, same thing with awareness. And then at the end of class, I always try to wrap it up to be like, Okay, now you did practice intention, now you did practice mindfulness, and now you did practice awareness. And then it's always kind of that, look I get at the end. They're like, I did? Like, oh, wow, I did that. So I think that those are questions that we often get asked as yoga teachers. But what are other questions that you guys get asked as you teach, whether it be beginners or advanced students? What are questions that you get, a common question you get from students? Kelsey, what's your most common question?
Where's the bathroom? Socks on or off. There's usually lots, like what Jodi already mentioned, should I have water? Are you going to lock the door? I'm like, yep, all belongings are going to be locked. That's usually for every studio.
What kind of questions do you get from your students? Like people who have already practiced. What's your most common question from your students that have practiced with you?
My students don't really ask me a lot of questions, to be honest. I always ask for feedback. The only thing they really say to me is like, you need to sing more. So
we need to have you sing at some point.
But something else I can just add is, talking about everything that we're talking about, I just want to, again, just bring it back to just take it one step at a time. You going to your first class is going to be amazing. And we just said 100 different things for you to think about. So I don't want you to go to your mat and be like, okay, I need to think about all these things and awareness and attention and mindfulness and my body and my thoughts and where are they, and just go on that thing. Just be like, okay, I showed up. And just take it one step at a time. Listen to your instructor. Sometimes instructors aren't good. Sometimes you might have a bunch of people in the class and the instructor might not be good for you. And if you don't like a class, don't just be like, yoga's not for me because that teacher was a whack job. Try another one, because we've all been to plenty of classes that we're like, is this a real teacher right now?
Well, and I think that brings up a good point. It's like every instructor has their own style. Every instructor is going to be different, and certain people are going to resonate with certain instructors.
Yes.
So it's like I know for me, I have my favorite teachers, and what I mean by that, those are the ones that you connect with on some level. So Kelsey, I think that's a great piece of advice. It's like, don't just go to one class, and if you didn't connect with the instructor, be like, oh, I hated yoga, it was terrible, I'm never going back. You have to try different people to figure out what you connect with. It's no different than dating. You're kind of, figuring out
exactly.
what you connect with, what doesn't.
And everyone can be a yoga teacher nowadays. You only need your 200 hour. And if you have injuries and if you have situations, be, again, mindful of that, because we all know during teacher training that students have gotten their injuries worsened because instructors have tried to adjust them, which we all don't do. Like, unless you know your student extremely well, that they have no problems whatsoever, you will guide them to go deeper into their posture. Mm-hmm. But besides that, like they shouldn't do this, because usually they, a teacher should ask if they can touch you. But if all of a sudden they're like cranking you in any kind of way, be like, no, just no, And another good thing, just teachers should normally ask this. I forget to ask it all the time, but if you have an injury or something going on, please mention it to your instructor, because they say if you have if you can't go on your stomach, say if you just got stomach injury. Like, I had a pregnant woman in my class once, and it was a level moderate class. I had all of these belly side postures I was going to do, but I just didn't do them anymore. So if you are like, I just got hip surgery, then the teacher might be like, okay, cool, I'm not going to do a lot of hip openers tonight, so this person gets something out of my practice. So if you have something wrong with you, just speak up.
Well, I think that's a good thing to mention, because I don't tell my students to tell me what's wrong with them, because I don't think that I'd ever get an honest answer, and I tell people, do what's best for your body. And then I pay attention to what they're doing, and if I notice that there are things that they're staying away from, and I specifically stress, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Don't try to make it happen. Find a different position and go totally off grid from what I'm saying. Because I feel like a lot of the time students don't want to come up and say, hey, I just had groin surgery. or, hey, I just had this, or they're afraid that I'm going to judge them and I'm going to tell them not to do things that they might want to kind of push themselves in. So I always just say, do what feels good for your body. And then I notice. And if I notice that tonight, you know, Cheryl's not working her knee as much, or when she's in down dog, one knee's a little bent, I know, okay, well, you know what, Cheryl's knee's probably hurting her, and I'm not going to push that issue with Cheryl and be like, straighten this leg or get that there. I think it's on my behalf to pay attention to that, because I don't think I'd ever really get an honest answer from people, because I don't think that anyone really wants to admit that they're not capable.
Yeah, for minor ailments, for sure. For sure.
No, but I think that goes exactly back to what we're talking about, mindfulness and intention.
Yeah.
You have to be there on your mat to know if you're in Warrior 2 and it's bothering your knee, or, you know, if you're not, you probably are going to hurt yourself, because that's where you start to compare yourself to others and go, oh, they look like that, so I need to look like this. It goes back to that forcing and that fighting.
Totally.
Very symbolic of life in general. It's like, what are you forcing yourself into that your body is not ready for right now?
Yes.
You know, and that's Angel, to your point, listen to your body. Well, listen to yourself. If you're in a posture and it hurts, that's a sign that your body's saying, this is not for you right now. And it's not bad or good or indifferent. I think we get this is a whole other conversation, but it's like, oh, I can get into this posture, so it means I'm good at yoga. And I really think that should be the next thing that we talk about, is like, what is being good at yoga? I just had a conversation yesterday. Someone said, I'm just not flexible.
That's the number one thing.
But listen, so like people assume, I don't go, well, you're not born flexible. You don't just come out of the womb and you're like, oh, I'm flexible.
Some people do.
Fair enough. But it's like, you have to, just like anything else, it's a process to open up your body. But I think that should probably be one of our next conversations is, you know, I'm not good at yoga, I'm not flexible, or, you know, whatever. Because, Angel, going back to what you said, what do you hear from your students? It's not I don't necessarily, you know, you get your general questions about alignment and things like that, but those are the statements that I hear. I don't necessarily hear questions. You hear statements like, I'm not flexible, I'm not good at yoga, I'm not, you know, I can't sit still for that long. You know, people say that.
I'm writing all the ideas down.
Yeah, that needs to be a whole separate conversation for sure. But just to touch upon saying that yoga shouldn't hurt, and I forget what I was gonna say.
I think it's huge. I think it's like, you know, you see people on Instagram and on Facebook, and I'm one of them. I post these crazy ass photos, you know, and sometimes some of the postures that I get myself into, or the places I get myself these postures into, are a little like, oh shit, I maybe shouldn't have been doing a handstand in the window on the 16th floor in a hotel. You know, like, I get it that the glass is going to keep me safe, but people are like, oh, wow, you took this photo. I was so worried about you. I could never do that. And it's like, I've also been practicing for years.
Right.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say about you saying that you practiced for years. And Angel is a dancer, too. She was also probably born doing a split because she's, like, super flexible. But you need to realize, and one of our friend Laura, she always starts class saying, look at the person to your left, look at the person to your right, and realize that, you know, everyone is different. And I didn't learn this until my teacher training, but there's going to be postures that you actually can't get into because of your bone-on-bone contact. Yeah. And if there's, say, Warrior 1 might not work for you at all. It might not feel good. And that's the whole ego, getting rid of the ego side of yoga, where it starts from day one. Because someone might be telling you to get into a posture and you're like, either one, I can't physically do this posture for whatever reason, or two, it really hurts. So you need to and like, that's that's not what it's about, which is what we should get into next, is that it's not even about all these postures. It's about that you're there and that you're being mindful and aware and present, like we were just talking about. It doesn't matter whatever posture you get into, you do what works for you. And that's the most important, like, vital thing to realize.
So, Jodi, the most common question you get from your students?
I mean, I think the questions vary, but I would say the theme is around things that have to do with alignment specifically. Usually, I talk a lot about alignment with the knees, and like, for example, Warrior 1, Warrior 2, I tend to just focus a lot on those areas because that's where you can tend to get most of your common injuries, like the knee leaning in and whatnot. So I think, again, the type of question is different usually after class, but it centers around, now show me that pose again and tell me exactly what I'm looking for so that I don't hurt myself. So that kind of awareness, if you can create that in the classroom to get people thinking, okay, from a safety perspective, not it should look like this, but like from keeping you safe so that you can continue doing yoga, it's centered around the clarification on making sure that they're doing the pose in a safe way that's not going to hurt them. So that would be the theme. The question is different depending on the pose, but
Mm-hmm.
here comes,
What?
I was just getting ready to say, here comes our chief technology officer with her phone out doing something.
Yeah.
I was taking a Snapchat. I was like, all right, let me get a little Snapchat of everyone.
We need to do a screen. I need to screenshot this.
Yeah.
Do a little screenshot.
I was like, I always forget what I'm going to say, and then I remember.
That video from us the other night.
Oh my God.
Me up.
The bug?
Racks me up. The bug. I can't get over it.
The bug that didn't exist.
Apparently you do.
So, I showed David the video.
Mm-hmm.
I was keeping really calm in front of them, trying not to lose my shit. And he's like, I'm surprised how calm you were, because like normally I like completely lose my shit with bugs. Like my clothes are usually right off.
Gosh. I used to get so freaked out by bees buzzing in my ear. Like that buzz, I would literally like running around like hallucinating, like shivering, like freaking out, like inside out for like 5 minutes when I was younger, because I had, which is, you never think I did, but I had like OCD like bad when I was younger. So like something buzzing in my ear just like messed up like my whole being for 5 minutes.
The best part of the video was Kelsey at the end being like, and I'm not afraid of bugs.
I'm not now.
So awesome.
Now I'm like that in person, and everyone's like, shut up. If I'm like, wait, don't kill it, bring it outside.
Wow.
But
How long are you in Key West, Jodi?
I come back Monday. Yeah.
So
something that I wanted to touch base upon with yoga and obviously yoga, but everything that we're talking about mindfulness, awareness, being safe and stuff, is that I guess I'm talking to people that are active, because if you're not active, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But say people that go to the gym, that lift weights, that do Pilates, any of those things, this will be a whole other conversation about how yoga can incorporate to literally everything in life. But if you use your body in any way physically, you can bring aspects of that to yoga. If you already know how to engage your core, if you know about the knee alignment for lifting weights, the inhale and the exhale, there's a lot of things that you can bring into yoga. And again, I'm talking to the people that are already active right now. Just a side note that just as much as the people that aren't doing yoga, I think that all of these people really need to start doing yoga, especially if you are active already. If you are lifting weights and you want to get yoked up, that's great, but you need to breathe and send oxygen to those muscles so they can shape and form the way that you want them to. So yoga is really great for that. I don't know, I just want to say that.
That's a whole other topic, too,
Yes.
is the breathing
Yes.
and oxygen. I mean, that's a whole other...
Yes. So I think we could probably wrap up about mindfulness, awareness.
Yeah.
Any like want to just say last like conclusion for all of us about being mindful, intention, like what
I think
a yoga class.
I think we need to like summarize. So it's like, here's the takeaway.
Yes.
Like 1, be proud that you showed up.
Yes.
2, be on your mat, like, and find something that you can say to yourself over and over again. Again, even if it's just like, be here, breathe. You know, when your mind starts to
you can
wander,
say or feel
like,
yes.
just. And so we talked about how being present on your mat will also keep you safe, and it will allow you to feel what's going on in your body, if there is pain, if there is an injury. So the importance of being able to be safe. And then also, we also mentioned, don't be afraid to try different teachers, different classes, because just because you might not connect with one, it's a matter of finding what you do connect with. And it's common that you might have to go to a couple different classes, experience a couple different teachers to figure out what works for you.
In different studios.
In different studios. Yeah, that's a great point. You might go to a studio and I always talk about energy and the vibe, you know, your gut. Like, trust that. If you go to a studio and you're like, it's all right, go to a different one, because you're going to find one you're like, yeah, there's something there that I connect to. Trust that. Follow that.
Yes, exactly. Because no one wants anything to just be like, it's all right. I feel like the only thing that's acceptable with is like food. People will be like, it's pizza. Pizza's pizza, you know? But if you're making that huge step to start something new, which is always the hardest thing to do, I think that you should walk out being like, whoa, that was great. Or at least it was challenging. Like, there should be something, there should be some takeaway there. If you walk out and you're just like, then I would try another studio or another teacher.
Yep.
And what's so great is that everyone is approachable, whether it's students, maybe some students aren't, maybe some teachers aren't, but someone in that space that you are in is going to be approachable, and have a conversation with them. Be like, hey, do you try any other classes? You know, someone out of that group is going to be willing to have that conversation with you that can help you and guide you somewhere else.
But at the time, I think it's important to realize that there are, like, and I've been there are yoga studios where no one is nice. And where the teachers are not approachable.
Thank you so much.
Really?
Yeah.
Bad.
And they think like, oh, I'm just so good, and oh, well, you didn't practice under so and so, and we've all seen it with like, and it goes towards part of the human ego in every aspect. And I would say if you've experienced that, or you went to a studio that was like that, don't go back. Find another place, because yoga and the practice of yoga should be a very peaceful, non-judgmental, and non-like competition type thing. Like when I've walked into a studio, which I won't name, and everyone's wearing Lululemon, and everyone has the newest Lululemon mat, and they're all like, oh, I practice 6 days a week, I do this, I do that. I don't care. You know, I set up my mat in the back of the room, and then I watch them practice yoga, and I'm like, you're going to hurt yourself. You know, and I think that as a new student, and like obviously I'm a seasoned practitioner, but as a new student coming in, they might start paying attention to those things, because these people are, you know, they have such confidence. I'm so great, I'm the best. Like, that's not what yoga's about. So if you're catching...
You need to write that down, because that needs to be a whole other conversation.
Well, if you're catching that vibe at a studio, try another one, because that's not supposed to be.
Yes, because...
You know, every time we're saying that, I think people used to go, that's a whole other talk show.
Yep.
Seriously though, because exactly what, if Angel says from the get-go, if everyone's being, just walk out. Like, don't walk out of class, because that's rude, but you can if you want. If it's that bad and you feel that, like, no. But there should be someone there that you can talk to, that you can ask some questions about any of the questions we just mentioned. If it's a well-functioning, good-hearted, soulful studio that's there for the right reasons, then you should be able to ask any of the questions that we just talked about. And if you can't, then go to another studio. There's plenty of studios around.
So are we wrapping today?
We're wrapping today. So we'll send off our goodbyes. Check us out on www.theyogagirls.com, and also our Facebook. You can search for The Yoga Girls. And our YouTube channel is The Yoga Girls, which you can find that link in our website and on our Facebook. So live from Rhode Island. Bye, guys.
Bye.